A Playguide and video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey there, welcome to a brand new season of Lemon 64 Play Guides and Reviews. In this episode we'll be checking out Back to the Future, developed and published by Electric Dreams and released spring 1986. As the game loads, you can see an amazing loading picture. It's scrolling onto our Commodore 64, and at the time I thought this was as digital perfect as you could get on a Commodore 64. And of course this mimics the cover and the official advertising art from the movie, and you can see various credits, and that's certainly nice to see as this game is loading. And upon a boot we get to see on the menu various options. By pressing F3 we can change between one of the 5 levels of this game, and of course we'll start this demonstration from level 1. Back to the Future, we play unsurprisingly as Marty McFly, and did you expect anything else? And in this game you can see Biff Tannen has already kicked our ass already, and Lorraine Baines is hot on our tail. In this game it's very much the opposite to the Oedipus complex. Instead of punishing out our father's lights, now we have to give him a book of love poetry and help our father out so that he will become our father. Once again, like the Oedipus complex, we must avoid falling into bed with our mother at all costs. If we touch our mother one time, then that will lose one part of the picture you can see on the left of the screen. Marcy's picture represents our energy, and if we can bring George, this is George McFly, we bring George to Lorraine, hopefully parts of that picture will be restored. Once all of the picture is restored on the left, then that will bring up a picture piece on the right. You can see there we have 4 out of the 5 picture pieces of the family that we start with, and our job is to complete the rest simply by gaining energy by getting this couple together. In order to help us on that quest, there are various items scattered around, and by picking those up we can use those to have various effects on the residents of this hill valley. And one of those is in the cafe. You can see right at the end in the cafe you'll find a cup of coffee, and by giving that cup of coffee to Biff, that will glue him to the spot. If Biff touches Lorraine it won't do much, but if Lorraine touches Marty, then of course you're going to lose energy. At the moment we aren't losing any energy because Lorraine is nowhere near us, but nowhere near Biff either, and that's a good thing. You can see she is somewhere around the proximity of George, and that means that we've gained one more piece of the picture, but she pops out there, and that means that we gain no more energy, and unfortunately it means that she's run into Biff and that loses energy. So there are various ways to gain energy in this game. The most easiest way is to pick up the electric guitar, give that to Elaine. That will freeze her to the spot. You can pick that up in the dance hall in the middle of this level. From the school we can also pick up the love poetry. You can see Doc Brown makes his appearance in this game as well, wandering around. Well, let's not touch Lorraine, where's George? And the biggest part of this game is tracking down characters, finding out where they are. And if you give the love poetry to George, well, here he is, let's find that guy. Hopefully he will follow us. And so there he is now, he's following us wherever we go. So if we can make him follow us all the way over to Elaine, uh-oh, that guitar power has worn off. And that means that, well, we can get those guys together, but because Elaine is touching us or in our vicinity, then our family photo will fade away. matters worse, Biff can also come along and freeze us to the spot for a number of seconds. You can see George is still hovering around us like glue, but we cannot use George when we are sat on the floor. We can press fire and we can punch in this game, and that will only have a real effect on Biff, and you can punch him to the ground, but in my experience it's probably best to give him the coffee, and then that puts him out of the picture. So let's try again. We can pick up of course, by pressing up and pressing fire together, we can then pick up an item, and we can give the guitar at this point to Elaine. Unfortunately, we've done that, but because we are frozen to the spot over Elaine, she's now sapped some more of our energy. And you can see not that much energy left before another slice of our family photo takes a dive. With all 5 characters in this game crowding the same space, it can get pretty busy, and if we run away, Biff should follow us. And because we are nowhere in the vicinity of Elaine and George, look at that, they've actually got together, giving us some life back. You can see at the end of each level, at either end, there are a box of crates. By pushing up, pressing fire, we can then take one of those crates and turn that into a skateboard, which gives us twice the speed on the level. So hopefully, if we give the guitar to Elaine, and we make George follow us all the way to Elaine, hopefully we can do that pretty quickly with a skateboard, and it wears off pretty quickly as well. Don't forget, even though you do get those 2 guys together, if you don't stick those in the right place at the right time, then Elaine will be wandering into us. So what I am about to do and trying to do there is the old formula. And that is to freeze Elaine in the concert hall and then get George in there somehow. You can see the doc wandering around, and what the doc will do is make Biff run away in the opposite direction. Biff doesn't like the doc particularly, so if you can get those guys together it can be a help, otherwise the doc does absolutely nothing. So now that we've got George on our side, let's hightail back to the hall, and well, by moving on the opposite side, hopefully when George turns up we can get them together. Unfortunately, Biff shows up and spoils the party, and well, that's not very good either. We can actually give the electric guitar to George and freeze him to the spot, which is great, and it means if we can get both of those guys in the same place together, we can freeze them both in each other's arms. But if they are within the same vicinity, the music will change and our picture will rise, and so as you see me gluing those guys down, if they are relatively in the same position, you'll see the music changes there and I hightail it out of there. It doesn't take very long for our energy to restore, and as long as those guys are stuck like glue, of course it won't take long before our family photo begins to fade back into existence. It doesn't help with Bishop punching us out, and in fact it really does infuriate the player when the player has got some energy and they seem to be making mistake after mistake. You will be surprised to learn that with the 5 pieces that it gives you originally, it is possible to complete this first level in under 10 minutes. And I've certainly completed this first level in only a couple of minutes before now. The other levels give you less family photo pieces on the board, and it gives you the same energy but practically not as many lives. So getting those guys back together again, you can see it's pretty quick to build up all those family photo pieces, and whilst they are in each other's way, I'm just going to give the coffee to Biff, and so he will be no further problem until I need him. So that's the trick to the game. You can see now most of the photo pieces are now in alignment, and as long as we make use of the electric guitar technique and get out of there as soon as they are together, then it should be possible in this game to make some headway. Unfortunately, that's all there is to this game, just a number of locations and a number of items to pick up. There is also the doc's lab, and you can pick up the radiation suit from there, which might just scare a few people away, but the only reason that you really need that is when you have the full family photo together, you must get the radiation suit, and when you appear from outside of the lab, the time machine will appear, and that whisks you onto the second level. And that's just an animation of the car moving across the street. But you won't get to see that in this play guide, basically because I never actually got there. And you can see we are almost there at this point. We can get those guys together just like that, and then leave, hopefully. If they are not absolutely together, then that's a wasted opportunity. But you can see, just making use of these simple mechanics, going back to Biff, making sure he's stayed there in the cafe, it means that almost all of our pieces are back together already. And when the magic potion wears off, all you have to do is to go back and do it again. So this game is actually quite shallow underneath it all, and you can see we only need one family photo piece remaining. Let's try to catch up. And sometimes those guys wander away and they spoil all our opportunity. All we need is one more photo fit and we can move on to the next level, but unfortunately, as you will see, this game just doesn't make it so easy. With those guys wandering around blindly, sometimes, well, you can see I can't even punch Biff, frozen to the spot, but with those guys wandering around, sometimes it's a bit like lemmings trying to herd things into the right direction. Just a little info about this game. It was basically designed by Mark Ailes, and his first game on the C64 was Strontium Dog and the Death Gauntlet, which was a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up game, a bit like a vertical bandana man, and he released that in 1984. He also moved on to Hijack in 86, along with Back to the Future, and he also designed Aliens in 1987, the Electric Dreams version of Aliens, and he went on to games like The Lawnmower Man. He wrote the story for that in 1993 for the game, and he also designed Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, you won't believe, in 1998. Back to the Future was also co-designed and fully coded, and all the music was by Martin Walker. And anybody on the C64 scene will know Martin Walker. This was his first game, his first coded game on the Commodore 64, and Martin Walker has of course gone on to become a musician and become famous for music. But this was his first game. He went on to design Chameleon in 1986 after this, and then he went off and created and coded and absolutely created the phenomenal game Hunter's Moon, which he released with Thalamus in 1987. So if Martin Walker has a legacy on the C64, it's Hunter's Moon. From there he went on to program the Citadel in 1989, which was a kind of a Paradroid clone for Electric Dreams once again, and then he moved on to music. Of course, you may remember Martin Walker's music to Army Light, which was amazing, and for games like Snare and Ninja Spirit. Then he moved on to the Amiga with music for games like Hunter, Frenetic, and even First Samurai. So Martin Walker's music is brilliant. I don't really know about his coding, because this game, well, it's a very easy game, and it's technically coded, but I wouldn't say it's anywhere near Hunter's Moon as his masterpiece. So Martin Walker and Mark Ailes created this game. It's very simple on the surface, and it was probably a rush out job to cash in on the movie license, but it could have been worse, although it could have been much better. Of course, there is no clock tower in this game, there is no Mr. Strickland, there is virtually nothing from the movie apart from these characters, and so you do not see all the great movie tie-in themes and the things from the movie, but what we do get is a number of rooms, and it's certainly not hard to figure out this game once you realise what all the items do. Even though this game isn't difficult to understand, it's also a little hard and a little boring as well, particularly if you don't have the skateboard involved padding around. and there is a formula to this game. You can see I've got those guys back together, and the picture pieces are, well, they should be coming back together at any moment. I need two to find, but once again Biff turns up and spoils the party. So this isn't really a game of two halves. It's pretty difficult and pretty annoying and pretty frustrating, and it would take a dedicated player to get anywhere in this game. It's also slightly annoying that the music in this game is actually one of the weakest aspects, and because Martin Walker is famous for music, that might be a little disappointing, but he had to start somewhere. And in this game, the music changes as soon as Elaine touches us, it changes, and as soon as George here touches Elaine, it changes again. So it can be pretty annoying, never quite listening to one track all the way through, and as soon as we are getting used to one track, it changes again. And one of those is pretty boring and annoying, The Power of Love, and I don't mind that Johnny Be Good, that's not too bad, but it could have been so much better, of course. The second aspect is if you lose sight of what you are supposed to be doing, it's so easy to get messed up in this game, and you can see padding around uselessly, trying to get that coffee, trying to knock Biff out, and trying to get the formula back under control is, well, slightly disappointing and slightly annoying, as I say. So it's not an amazing game, and I have got far. I think I've got up to at least level 4, but that was back in the day. Right now you can see I haven't played this game since the day, in probably about 20 years. I'm paying the price for that. On the screen you can see the lights lit. They will go green when one of our players is under control of one of those items. If they are next to us, they will go white at the bottom. That shows that they are in our vicinity, and so you can also see the time at the bottom actually ticks up. So instead of ticking down the clock up to midnight, it actually ticks up the amount of time that it's taken us on the level. So there really is no end to this game. You'll find that this review goes on for at least half an hour, and you can spend all night playing just the one level of this game if you like. And it would be a pity that all this is about time travel and running around from one place to another. It's certainly a pity that there's no time element or time deadline in this game. Back to the Future is of course based on the movie, released in 1985, and that was written and directed by Robert Zemeckis, and that was co-written by Bob Gale, and it's also a tremendous movie. You can see our central character is supposed to be the Michael J. Fox character, and when did Michael J. Fox wore red head to toe in the actual movie? Well, he had a red jacket there, life preserver, but that was the only thing red about the character, and I don't think it's a particularly well drawn character on the C64. In the movie we also had Christopher Lloyd, who was the wide-eyed, wild-haired scientist, and of course the Mad Doc, and he started out in his film career as the wide-eyed, mad character in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which was released in 1975. So a mad character there hasn't really progressed from his initial stereotypes, and it's great to see him in a tour de force performance in this movie. And it's also great to see the Doc in the game, but again the Doc is absolutely useless apart from maybe trying to keep Biff at bay in this game. So even though the Doc is there, the impetus for having him isn't there, and you can see the characters don't even have eyes in this game, so certainly liberties have been taken. It's great that we can even punch guys, but unfortunately we can only punch guys, and this is not IK+. We can't kick those guys and perform lots of different manoeuvres, and that's a shame because it would be nice to trip those guys up and do things like that. and as I say, there's no clock tower and other things which link this into the movie, so this game could, well, it couldn't be tied in with any other movie. This is basically it, but again, there's so much that they could have done, and well, what can you say? Even the clock doesn't move, but at least the graphics are okay, and the music is okay, and the playability is, well, it's okay. And at least some of the characters from the movie have made it into the game. The Crispin Glover character is there, and Thomas Wilson played Biff. Leah Thompson, of course, played Lorraine, and it's not too bad, Lorraine. In fact, I like the way she walks with a bit of a stoop, heading towards us on a mission. And the bent over George, I'm not quite sure why he's bent over like that, but Elaine walks very nicely there, and it's quite comical in fact. But it would have been even better if Mr. Strickland was at the end of the road with some kind of cane, and James Tolkien, of course, made sure he played Mr. Strickland in the following two movies as well. James Tolkien, it's very easy to remember that name. But back to the game, it doesn't look like we're going to get any further. By speeding up this footage now, you can see it's more or less an energy game, and the energy wipes itself on and off the map pretty quickly. This footage is speeded up 400%. And as you can see, when you get those guys together, it's a great feeling, because you can build the parts of the picture. But as soon as those guys separate, it's not a great feeling when those parts disappear, and you virtually have to do the whole thing and backtrack all over again. And sometimes, if you have a run of bad luck, you can be wiped all the way down to one picture piece, and of course it's best to restart the entire game if that's the scenario. It gives you 5 on level 1, so hopefully with 5 pieces it should be easy enough to complete the game. So once again, we are almost there. You can see those pictures building up. And if only this game was just a little bit deeper, just a little bit better in every respect. But, like I said, this is a cheap cash-in game. And comparing this to Back to the Future 2, well, I actually think that this is more fun and more playable than Back to the Future 2. Back to the Future 2 had a slide puzzle in there which wasn't so bad, but the hoverboard section was incredibly boring. Back to the Future 3 was very hard on the horse riding section on every single conversion, and even AVGN couldn't complete Back to the Future 3. But this game is difficult for a different reason, and it's boring for a different reason, and it's a shame. Well, look at that, you can give the coffee to any character and that will freeze them onto the spot, as well as the guitar. And you can see we have managed to freeze onto the spot, but pulling down and pressing fire to actually deliver those collectibles. You actually push up and press fire to collect them, and pull down and press fire to drop them off. And sometimes it isn't amazing. They do light up on the very top of the screen when you've collected those, including the skateboard, but obviously it's obvious when you've got the skateboard, so you don't really need that. And of course, 3 items, of which there are only 3 items in this game, it's not amazing. I think if you can give the portrait to Elaine, she will follow you as well, and so 2 items freeze the character, and again I've no idea what the radiation suit does until the very end of the game, and then you can pick that up and leave the mission. And it's actually a good feeling when you complete the game, but it's only a car rolling down the road, so it could have been better. So I'm going to speed up this footage again, and that's just to show you how difficult and infuriating this game can be. And getting punched down every few seconds doesn't help, but sometimes those guys will simply build up and restore energy all on their own. So sometimes it's luck over judgment, and you can see health is being restored and I'm doing nothing about it until Elaine pops out. So I think you've seen as much as there is to see about this game. I think the graphics are well, not very good drawn actually. Probably I'll give that a 4 out of 10. The Time Machine's pretty good, that gets a 6 out of 10. The music, again, only gets a 4 out of 10, even though one of the tracks isn't so bad, the other one is pretty appalling. And the playability, well, again, that only gets perhaps a 3 or a 4 out of 10, basically because, well, it is playable. The game certainly isn't the 18, it is playable, but as for story and playability, well, it falls down flat. So that virtually brings us on to the scores. And for this game, Zap actually gave it the lowest scores, and they originally gave this 32% in April 1986, with a whole rake of complaints, as you can imagine. But by November 1992, on the budget release, they actually gave this 19%. 19%. I think it deserved it. But taking a look at the other scores, you'd be surprised to find that Your Commodore gave this 50%, Your Computer and Commodore User gave this 60%, and CMVG actually gave Back to the Future on the Commodore 64 70% in March 1986. So 70% for this game, I really do not think it merits it, because of all the things I've highlighted already. It's very flimsy, and it's like herding lemmings into a trap that they just do not want to go into. And it could be very easy, but it isn't, and it could be very fun and exciting, and I would have rather preferred a level with a platform shoot-'em-up action game rather than this, but you never know what you're going to get on a Commodore 64. And, well, it could have been much better. So, thank you for watching another Playguide and review, this time to the 64 game Back to the Future. On the Lemon Amiga channel this season, we'll be running games based on the past and the future, or perhaps time travel. And ironically, none of the Back to the Future games are in there, because the Back to the Future games are actually pretty dire. And I only covered this because, well, it deserved a play guide, because it's not obvious what all these things do, but at the same time, it deserved a review because, well, it's pretty dire. And I can't always review the very best games on the 64 and on the Amiga. So, thank you for watching this play guide and review. Hope to see you soon on another play guide sometime soon. Thank you.